The NHL is not ready for what's about to happen, as the Battle of Ontario is about to happen in this year's playoffs, and it's going to be one of the most highly anticipated playoff series of round one. And in this video, we're going to talk about everything from both sides, players, X factors, everything going into this series, so you're not going to want to miss this episode of Hattrick HQ. But before we get into the video, we got to say we're on the road for 13,000 subscribers, sir, before the start of the playoffs. So if you're not subscribed, you want to stay up to date on everything going on in this year's playoffs and heading into a busy offseason, make sure you're down below and hit that subscribe button. But Mark, we got a really great series on our hands this year. The Battle of Ontario, the Leafs versus the Sens, is now official for the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I know a lot of Leafs and Sens fans are very excited about this matchup. It is going to be a very physical and intense series, and it's going to be one that there's going to be a lot of eyes on from all NHL fans in general. I mean, just taking an early look at it, Mark, I mean, the Senators did have the least numbers and had the least numbers in the regular season with a 3-0 record against the Leafs this year, and I know it's a lot of talk right now online is about how the Leafs couldn't beat them in the regular season, but one thing that a lot of people aren't talking about here is how the Leafs have an all-time record of 4-0 against them in the playoffs. So, I mean, maybe you could draw a factor into that. But, Mark, I mean, like I said, this series is going to be one a lot of people are on the lookout for. What is your initial reaction to this series, and are you excited for it?
I mean, listen, the Leafs have been the best team in the Eastern Conference all season long behind the Washington Capitals. I meant saying the Atlantic Division. But listen, we know the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't good against bad teams. They lost a bunch of games against the San Jose Sharks, and they lost games against the Ottawa Senators. This Leafs team is poised to go on a run. And listen, a lot of Leafs fans say that every year. But this team is miles ahead of where Ottawa's to. And that's not to kind of hurt on Ottawa and what they're doing. They're a young team. They're growing. They have veterans, the new goaltender. They're trying to build a culture there. But I don't think they're ready yet going against the Leafs team that have been here before. Yes, the jokes of the first round exit in 1967. But this is a team that's continuously getting better and better. We're seeing the star players getting older and more maturing. Austin Matthews is now a captain. They've reamped the entire blue line of this team with Brad Treliving taking over. I don't know if it's crazy, KC, but I do think the Leafs have a huge edge in the series, minus the regular season stats, which are obviously a factor into it, but not a huge one. Looking at the stats, I mean, the Leafs have been dominant offensively. Their goaltending have been good this year. Craig Berube has changed everything. I don't know. What's your thoughts on this Leafs team going into the playoffs?
Yeah, this is definitely a scary Leafs team. I think it's a different one than what we've seen in previous playoffs. I think, like you said, Brad Treliving has really made his mark on this team this year by, bringing in guys like Scott Laughton, bringing in guys like Steven Lorentz. Treliving has done a great job of building this team into a playoff team, especially with the defense as well. But if you look at the stats here, I mean, Mitch Marner has been the standout guy for the Toronto Maple Leafs all year, and I know there's a big question mark surrounding him with his contract. Is this the last time we're going to get to see Mitch Marner in a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey? And I know there's always a big question mark around him and Matthews when playoff time comes around, but it kind of seems like I said, there's a different feeling around this team this year, and I think it might be the year where they finally, start clicking into playoffs. And a big point I did want to make and throw back to you here is, Joseph Woll and Anthony Stolarz, both goalies, have been great this season for the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you're Berube, who are you starting in game one?
It's 100% Anthony Stolarz. We've seen him go, I believe, 8-0 in his last 8 games, 3 or 4 shutouts during the span. He went with the Florida Panthers to win a Stanley Cup. Obviously, Bobrovsky was the main piece on that goaltending duo, but this is a goaltender that has been in the Stanley Cup Finals with a team that has won it all. I think you almost have to go with a no-brainer mindset, put Stolarz in. And the big thing is, if he kind of falters, you still have an elite goaltender to put in just behind him.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, I mean, last year we seen Joseph Woll go out with that injury, and a lot of people say if he started in that game, maybe they win the series. Maybe that's a different thing that happens, and we're not sitting here talking about how big of a failure the Leafs have been in the playoffs. I think that, like I've said, I think there's going to be a lot of big decisions to be made by Berube, but I do think the decisions become easier this year with a lot of more players stepping up and having a lot of a deeper lineup. I mean, Matthew Nye is playing a huge role for this Toronto Maple Leafs team this season, and a guy that I think is going to be the X factor for them in this series. I think if he gets hot and he can go out there, score goals, park his body in front of the net, screen the goalie, I think this is going to make a big difference for the case of the Toronto Maple Leafs. But diving more into their injuries is where it really gets interesting, because, you know, obviously OEL is out right now, and Jake McCabe is out. Yanni Hakanpää, is he ever going to play as a Leaf? We don't know that. Max Pacioretty, a guy who's on LTIR as well. Mark, seems like they're dealing with a lot of injuries, and if they can get a guy like OEL and McCabe back for the start of this series, I mean, that's going to make a huge impact.
Yeah, the biggest thing is Jake McCabe has been incredible this year. We've seen his extension. He's worth every penny. OEL, who's being paid by, it feels like 5 teams at this point, is having a standout year for the Leafs as well. Getting these guys back in lineup, David Kampf, less of the 3, would be huge for him. Pacioretty would be an awesome piece. Hakanpää is kind of weird because we don't know what's happening with him. But this Leafs team, if they can get fully healthy, going into game 1, we're going to see a dominant force coming out of the gates.
Yeah, I got to switch gears to Ottawa here, because it kind of seems like we're pumping the tires of the Leafs a lot here, but I'm really behind the Ottawa Senators here, because I've liked what they've done at the trade deadline, bringing in Zetterlund, bringing in Dylan Cousins. They have done a lot of great things in Ottawa this year, and I mean, Brady Tkachuk has been a different beast for this team this year, and has really carried them to the position that they're in today, I would say. I mean, Tim Stützle is obviously leading the team in points. Drake Batherson, a guy who's been a dominant goal scorer for this team this year. He has, 24 goals on the season, has really been able to score goals in clutch situations for this team this year. Like I said, bringing in a guy like Dylan Cousins and Fabian Zetterlund, these guys have been established point getters in the NHL, and I think that's going to contribute a lot to their playoff successes, having these guys come over midway through the season and try to give them that little extra edge that they do need to beat a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs. And just heading over into their goaltending situation, Mark, before I throw it back to you, Ullmark has been very solid for them this year. He has 24 wins with 4 shutouts on the season, posting a .911 save percentage. I think the big deciding factor of this series is going to come down to the goaltending.
And listen, the biggest thing is, if any goalie's going to know how to beat the Leafs, it's going to be Ullmark. He was a part of the Boston Bruins during their runs against teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs. Listen, I know I sound like a hater on the Sens, and I'm not going to hide the fact that I want the Leafs to win the series, but this is the Sens team that is going to be very good in the near future. They could be outstanding this playoffs as well. Brady Tkachuk has been awesome. We've seen him in the Four Nations looking like the Bash Bros. With Matthew Tkachuk, this team has the talent. They have the young talent to build with, but I don't know if they're fully there yet. This team, like I said, could come out and win against the Leafs in 7. I mean, the Leafs are notorious for blowing game 7s and for blowing leads, so maybe we see the Sens come out and dominate, but this is an exciting team, Sens fan. Listen, you have the top-end talent. You have young guys to work with. Claude Giroux on this team, good goaltending. This is a team to be very excited about, even if they lose. Listen, you have next year. This team's going to get better. I know the running joke that Mark Mathot said, hey, 2 years later, they're going to be better than the Leafs, and we haven't seen that yet, but I do think there is a window opening for Ottawa before we really see them be a true contender coming out of the East.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Leafs fans out there that aren't giving the Ottawa Senators a fighting chance, and I think that's blasphemy, because I think this Ottawa Senators team is great, and they only got better at the deadline. They've beat the Leafs 3 times in 3 games this year. I think this is going to be a very hard-fought battle. Mark, what's your prediction for this series? How many games, and who do you think wins?
I think the Leafs will take this in 5. Listen, as I said, the Sens are going to put up a battle. They're a good team, but I don't think they have the experience. This is a Leafs team that's playing for everything. This could be the difference of Mitch Marner moving on from this team, from the Leafs blowing up their so-called core 4. This team has so much to play for this year. I do think they're going to come out like bats out of hell. They're going to make an impact. I could see the series going to 6, but I do think the Leafs are going to finish this off in the range to 5 to 6 games.
Yeah, it's a very interesting take. I mean, it's probably one that a lot of people watching this video are on the side of, but I got to go with the Senators here. I think this team has been on a roll as of late, has been winning a lot of games without their main guy in the lineup, and now getting Brady Tkachuk back in, being a dominant force, a physical force, getting under the skin of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think this goes 7. It is just destined for the Battle of Ontario to go Game 7, and I think that in a one-game knockout scenario, I think the Ottawa Senators could best the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the curse continues. So we want to hear your guys' thoughts on that down below in the comment section. What are your predictions for the series? Do you think Ottawa wins? Do you think the Leafs win? Let us know down below. While you're down there, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be here keeping you up to date on the latest happenings around the NHL. And if you want to check out another game preview we did, it will be popping up on your screen right now. But as always, I've been your host, KC, alongside my co-host, Mark Pye. Keep your stick on the ice.